Well, I'm really proud to have this conversation with a very important person, especially at a time when the whole country is talking about narcotics investigations. This couldn't be a stronger voice on narcotics investigation. Joining me today is Mr. B.B. Kumar, IPS, the former Director General of the Narcotics Control Bureau and the first Director General of the Narcotics Control Bureau, who literally wrote the book on narcotics investigations in India. Well, apart from the fact that he understands narcotics investigations better than anyone else in the country, he's also the former Director General of the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, who's among the only cops in the country to have interrogated Dawood Ibrahim, and he's written a book about it. But this conversation is going to be about the drugs investigations going on in the country right now. A lot of other senior cops have said that he's a legend in the IPS and a voice that everyone must take very seriously. So I'm extremely grateful to Mr. Kumar for giving me time this afternoon to speak with me. Mr. Kumar, thank you for agreeing to this conversation.
Thank you for inviting me to the program.
Well, to begin with, Mr. Kumar, I understand you've looked at the remand copy that was submitted in the case of Rhea Chakrabarti before the court in her bail hearing. It lists out all of the sections. It also lists out the various steps of the investigation that the NCB has undertaken. Quite easily, in your opinion, when you look at these sections, do you believe that they have a strong case against her?
Now, I went through the remand application filed before the Honorable Court, Special Court for NDPS offences, and invoked the most important sections available under the NDPS Act, Section 8C, then Section 20B, then Section 27, 28 of the NDPS Act. The 4 sections which have been invoked are relate to very serious offences. It covers a wide range of serious offences, but it also covers even small offences in the sense, for example, in this case, the main offence appears to be that of purchase and sale. And some of them, the other co-offenders who were there, they were also involving in peddling, procuring and transporting and supplying and things like that. But coming to the main person in this case, which was the focus of the whole investigation, appears to be that of Rhea Chakrabarti. I went through the offences that have been recorded. As far as she is concerned, she appeared to have given directions.
Yes.
She appeared to have given directions only to that of this Sushant Singh Rajput on his behalf, and for helping him to procure the drugs. She placed orders through her brother or through Samuel Miranda, who was sort of a house manager or whatever he was. And they in turn contacted other persons. For example, they contacted Parihar, they contacted some others also who were supplying the drugs. And they in turn used to deliver it to Deepesh Sawan, who was their another helper in the house. Now, it was not as if they were directly, and at least she was not directly procuring the drug. She was probably for Sushant Singh, she was procuring the drugs. Then what happened in the whole process was her offense seems to be covered under Section 8C and 20B to the extent of purchase and also for paying for it. Not always she paid. According to the remand application, it was Sushant Singh also was paying for it. And she was also paying through either credit card or directly through cash. Now, that being so, to say that it covers the entire gamut of offences covered under Section 8C or 20B may not be that correct. Now, I should point out here, when you go to 20B, we have to see the quantum of drugs that has been seized.
Yes.
Now, here, the starting point was 46 grams and 13 grams of that to ganja. Now, the minimum quantity that has been notified by the central government as what is meant by small quantity was 1,000 grams as far as ganja is concerned, 100 grams as far as charas or hashish is concerned. Now, the large quantity for ganja is 20 kilograms. And our seizure is nowhere near 20 kilograms. For charas, it is 500 grams, and 100 grams, and large quantity is 1 kilogram. Now here, nothing has been seized either from the residence or person of Rhea or her brother, but they appear to have relied on the statements that have been recorded during the course of investigation. from so many other persons, starting from the initial this fellow Abbas or Hussein was, and Karan Arora, and some others. The chain came like that. Now, if you see the chain of supply from person to person, ultimately it was Samuel Miranda who was procuring from Parihar, and Parihar to, then it comes to Deepesh, and Deepesh to probably Sushant, for which part of the money was being paid by either Sushant when he was alive or Ria during that period. Now, if you see what exactly is the punishment for a small offense under section 20B, it is up to rupees 10,000 in terms of fine, or up to 6 months in terms of imprisonment. Now, it's the word used is may. It may not be. That's the choice is with the judge. If it is shall, then the judge has no choice. Here the offense, the word that is used for punishment is may up to 6 months, or the word or, it is not and, or it says 10,000 rupees fine, up to that too. It can be 1 rupee, it can be 10,000 rupees, it can be 1 day or up to 6 months. Now that being so, we have to rely on the criminal procedure book. Any offense which is punishable for less than 3 years is a bailable offense. The NDPS Act does not mention what is the bailable or non-bailable offense. It only says that we have to go to CRPC, and there it says up to 3 months and above, 3 years and above, that is for murder, for amounting to murder, or life imprisonment, or any offense punishable beyond 3 years. There it is a sort of a non-bailable offense. Okay. But here that is not the case.
That's not the case. So I'm just going to break up what you said into pieces so our audience can understand it clearly. So first point is the fact that you said, which is obvious in the copy that the NCB has submitted before the court, that there is no physical seizure of the drugs. They have not taken any of the drugs in their custody. It's not available in evidence to weigh or to submit before the court or to do forensics in FSL on. So is it important, in order to decide whether it is a large quantity, small quantity that we're talking about, is it important that the drugs be seized on the person of the accused?
Yeah, that's right. Here there's no seizure. There's no seizure of drugs except from the so-called drug suppliers in the first stage, and subsequently on Keshwani and some others, Ibrahim, for example, and others. But there again, except in one case of Keshwani, seized in small quantity, then the rest of the persons from who were the drug suppliers, there was no seizure in the sense it was large quantity. Now, coming back to the main offender in this case, as per the remand application, Ria is concerned, no drug has been seized from her, and it's entirely based upon the evidence that has been recorded either from her, her brother, or other suppliers. Now, all of them are co-accused in this case. All of them are co-accused, and the evidence given by a co-accused is a very weak evidence and cannot be relied upon unless corroborated by independent evidence. No independent evidence has been cited in the remand application. So in that case, to rely entirely on the statements of the persons, and that too in the custody of the NCB, its evidential value is questionable because it is not corroborated by independent evidence.
So I want to ask you, and a lot of our audience is also asking the question about marijuana or weed, or in this case, they call it ganja. At these amounts, does it become a case for the NCB, which I understand when you started was meant to liaison with foreign investigating agencies to stop the import of large quantities of drugs or crossing the state borders? This level of marijuana, which we know is used in bhang, which we know is used in chillums across the country, is it surprising to you that it has gotten the attention of the NCB to this extent?
I must mention here how the NCB itself was started. So it's at the initiative of the United Nations Conference on Prevention of Drug Trafficking and Drug Abuse. In 1985, a convention was held. They said, keeping in mind the widespread of both supply and abuse of narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances, it is necessary to formulate laws in each of the member countries so that stringent punishment is given to drug trafficking, and also to see that drug abusers are rehabilitated and a lenient view is taken as a stringent punishment that should be awarded to drug traffickers. The whole idea of this convention as well as the NDPS Act is to see that the drug traffickers who commit crime against the society, because large section of the population, if they get addicted, they become useless members of the society. And not only that, it's a tremendous pain for the parents to see their children getting addicted. So the large sections of the population, when they get addicted, they become useless members of society, and it creates a lot of social and other problems, economic problems for the families and even to the government to rehabilitate them. So that is the main object of formulating this NDPS Act. And NCB was particularly created not only to enforce this law, but basically to gather intelligence about large syndicates that operate in sort of importing and exporting of drugs or manufacturing drugs. Then there's a network. When we use the word syndicate, that unfortunately that has been used in this remand application, that she was a member of a syndicate. Syndicate, we normally use the word amongst the investigating agencies for an organization which has a huge amount of network, where there is procurement or source from a big source, manufacture, then storing and transporting, then right to taking up to the peddlers level, and then left off to the retailers. So that's the whole thing is called a big syndicate. Here, to call this RIA as a member of a syndicate involved is rather too much of an exaggeration.
So in your opinion, is it fair to conclude that you believe that this is a very weak case?
I won't say it's a weak case, but what should have been done is this should have been a starting point for the NCB to find out exactly, not even the peddlers who have been caught. From them, they should have found out who are the real suppliers and from where the source is for all these drugs coming. Then they would have hit a big this thing. For example, in my book, you would have seen that from a street level, able to identify major factories, manufacturing Mandrax tablets, storage places where hashish or heroin or something like that is stored. That's how it is. So this should have been taken as a starting point to find out who are the real major heads of the syndicates, who are the source for giving it to the peddlers, and from there right up to the consuming level. That's what should have been done in this case.
The manner in which this investigation
according to me, they lost.
Yes. The manner in which this investigation has been conducted, where details are being leaked to the press constantly, where the press is actually preempting what the NCB is going to do and putting out these stories. Is this conducive to finding the source of the drugs or cleaning up Bollywood or breaking the cartel? Or is this an investigation being run for the media?
Yeah, I think you put it properly. I personally feel no investigating agency will ever disclose information during the course of investigation, because you lose the main offenders who are involved in the case, because what they would do is they will clean up their places. Nothing would be available in the form of evidence if you leak it to the press or leak it for that matter to any other agency. So you will be compromising on the intelligence which you may or which you would have gone during the course of investigation. For example, if they had interrogated either Zaid or other chaps who were involved, or Keshwani and others, probably they would have found out which was the main source, rather than finding out who are the peddlers or who are the persons who are consuming. See, if you extend it to the consumers, then there's a large number of not only film folks, but probably rich businessmen or even school children would be involved. I mean, that is the unfortunate part. So rather concentrate on the addicts, they should have concentrated on the main offenders. That would have been a real achievement.
In this case, in the remand application, Mr. Kumar, the NCB has said very clearly that Rhea Chakrabarti was sourcing the drugs or paying for it for personal consumption of Sushant Singh Rajput. She was at this point his live-in partner. Does this make her a peddler, or does this make her a proxy for the person who was consuming? Because according to the law, I understand that the person consuming and the person peddling are treated very differently.
Correct. I don't think she would come within the meaning of a peddler. See, peddler, though it is not defined under the NDPS Act, it is certainly defined in various other judgments. A peddler is the person who probably sells in small retail quantities. That is the normal understanding in common law. But in this case, she is not selling to anybody. She is probably procuring. In fact, the statement of Deepesh Sawant and others should show It is Sushant Singh Rajput who were directly placing order when he was alive. And sometimes it was Riya Chakraborty who was also probably placing an order or purchasing it on his behalf. She never said she is consuming it. She always maintained that she was probably getting it for Sushant because he was requesting for it, probably because he's not allowed to give any statement. But DPAT statement very clearly shows it was Sushant Singh who was actually placing the orders, and sometimes he would pay for it and sometimes Riya would pay for it. So you may say that Riya was probably, because she paid through either credit card in cash, you may say that she has purchased it, not for herself, but on behalf of Sushant. But she was living with him. So like any other, in terms of some of the Supreme Court judgments, if there's a living in relationship, almost they are entitled for the property of the person's spouse with whom they are living. So she's almost as good as a wife. It depends on the number of years she stayed.
So in that case, would you say that the law is more likely to see her as, a proxy or of a consumer rather than a peddler, which is considered a criminal? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, according to this law, someone who's consuming the drugs is seen with little more sympathy and leniency, because this is a person who needs to be sent to rehab and not to prison. It is the peddler and the manufacturer and the importer of drugs who is the real criminal. Is that correct?
She's definitely not a peddler, but she did pay for it. And that itself does not make her a peddler, because she doesn't come within the meaning of a peddler. According to me, as per the understanding in terms of other judgments where peddler has been interpreted, she doesn't come within the meaning of peddler.
So in that case, without drawing question on the actions of the court, if we are looking at, ideally, in your opinion, a fine and an up to 6 months, sentence in prison, is it unusual that she has not been given bail and she has been sent to judicial custody until the 22nd?
Yeah, in the normal course, the judge should have given her bail. According to me, the normal course should have given bail, because the charges against her was only for purchase or sale of that too. The quantities have not been mentioned in the bail application, and nothing has been seized from her. So that being so, she should have, in the normal course, given bail. And in the remand application, they failed to mention that she would tamper with the witnesses in future investigation. What they said in the remand application was they have to do further investigation. Yes, they can do further investigation, but they have not said she would in any way tamper with the witnesses. Had they said that, at least there would have been some meaning in not giving her bail. In the normal course, the Honorable Judge should have given her bail.
Also, since they have not asked for remand custody, which is, for our audience, the difference between keeping the person in police lockup so they can be continued questioning, what the NCB has asked for is judicial custody, which is she has been moved to a prison with other hardened criminals, because they said they no longer need to question her. In that case, what is the need to hold her if she's not going to tamper with evidence which doesn't exist at this point, if she's not going to tamper with witnesses, and they no longer need to question her? What is the justification for continuing to hold her against her right to liberty?
I personally feel there was no justification. And not only that, if she was required to be under NCB custody, then her statements would amount to recording a statement of a person who is in custody, either that of the police or an NCB or any other investigating agency. So that evidential value can be questioned unless proved by other evidence. Now, in this case, normally a person, if he is remanded to judicial custody, then he can always refuse to give a statement or give a statement in accordance with what he or she assumes to be the correct position. But here, unfortunately, when a person is in judicial custody, she is put along with other criminals, because they are never put in a isolated room or isolated prison cell. So they are with other criminals. As you rightly said, there could be hardened criminals there, and probably may not be an atmosphere conducive for a person of the middle class family to stay with such criminals. But then there are two sides of the whole thing. Advantages are that in law, she has the liberty of refusing to give a statement or give a statement in accordance with what she feels correct. But the other flip side is that she has to stay along with other criminals.
Mr. Kumar, do you believe this entire investigation on this young woman between the CBI and the ED, the Mumbai police, the Patna police, and now the NCB is either being driven by the media asking for some sort of, somebody to blame, or by some sort of politics? Do you think that this is, is there something more to this investigation that meets the eye?
I don't think media has really influenced the investigation. Media was only reporting what was coming out from the leakages that were coming out to them. And also by interviewing Ria from time to time by different agencies and different anchors, including Rajdeep, which was a very detailed interview. Rajdeep Sardesai for India Today. And so many other channels who have interviewed her. Otherwise, I don't think it was in the normal course so much of publicity would have come for this particular case, because a starlet or a film star was involved in this case. It received so much of publicity. I don't think in media in any way influenced the further investigation. The real focus of the case should have been what the CBI undertook to find out whether Sushant Singh Rajput case was a case of suicide, homicide, or murder. These are the things which were supposed to have been determined. But that has gone into the background, and then Enforcement Directorate took over the case to see whether there was any money laundering involved. And the main amount that was supposed to have been received was about 15 crores, which the producer of the movie has said, denied on TV, that he has never paid this 15 crores because probably the contract never fructified and there was no written contract. So that being so, probably the Enforcement Directorate also may not have succeeded in sort of making out a case under Money Laundering Act, Prevention of Money Laundering Act. So I don't know what further progress they may make. But as far as the NCB is concerned, I think they have taken up a very minor case, which in the normal course should have been investigated by the state police, and that too at the police station level and not at a senior level. And that's my personal opinion.
Yes. So effectively, what you're saying is that this amount of ganja is normally a head constable or a beat constable's jurisdiction, not a national investigating agency.
Yeah, that's what even Mr. Ribello, who was a very respected colleague and senior officer of the police service, who also said it should have been left to the head constable to investigate. So also many other senior police officers have mentioned, of the Bombay police, that this should have been left to the head constable or the station house officer to do the investigation, but not by the NCB. According to me, when we established NCB, we were always hitting of cases involving huge amounts of narcotic drugs or psychotropic substances, involving large quantities, 100 kgs, 200 kgs, 500 kgs, or factories manufacturing mandrax and things like that, and not cases involving drug abusers. We're never doing that.
There are also cases right now that are being investigated in the city of Bangalore involving movie stars and young women. If you've had a chance to consider that case as well, to take a look at the details, do you believe that that is a stronger case? Because even then, even in that case, there has been no physical seizure of the drugs.
There, at least two witnesses were important witnesses. One was the person who was working in the RTO office. He appears to have been a major supplier of drugs and also organizing rave parties. And one gold businessman, he was also organizing rave parties. More importantly, they apprehended one chap who was the event manager. Event manager is a person who not only organizes a party, probably here he was also organizing the supply of drugs for such parties. And that was an important lead that they were able to get in Bangalore, unlike in Bombay. In Bombay, they never had a lead to find out whether any rave party was held, and if so, where, and who was organizing such parties. Though obliquely, I think they mentioned some parties were being held at the farmhouse of Sushant Singh, but there was no evidence or no mention about it in the remand application.
Do you believe that there is political interference with the actions of the police and investigating agencies right now?
I have no information on that. Nor the press has stated so.
Okay. And finally, one of the questions that a lot of young people want to ask you at this point, and this is coming from Instagram, is do you believe small amounts of marijuana should be legalized, or should be allowed? Would that make things easier, or do you see it as a gateway drug and hence should not be allowed to be peddled?
No, I think there's a lot of countries have already legalized the consumption of marijuana. For example, Canada, it was never illegal to grow, cultivate marijuana, and in large quantities smuggled to USA. In fact, that is the area of conflict between Canada and USA. In some of the European countries, it has already been legalized. In India, there was a number of suggestions from the press as well as from the sociologists who clearly mentioned that marijuana should be legalized, but maybe up to some small quantities and other things. Certainly, it should be legalized. It's not harmful, but taken in the form of charas, for example, in the form of hashish, if a truck driver or a taxi driver, or that matter, an auto rickshaw driver, if he takes hashish, not so much of marijuana, he can cause accidents. Similarly, if a doctor who is performing surgery, if he's taking some drugs, and particularly stronger drugs like hashish or heroin or cocaine, then he may kill the patient. So there's a danger in the case of strong drugs, but not so much on marijuana. Marijuana in small quantities, in some cases, have been even medically mentioned that it can be taken, but it depends, because one of the things that always happens is a person, when he gets chemically dependent on any of these drugs, it may lead from smaller quantity to larger quantities. That is danger. It depends on the individual whether he can control or otherwise. And also, if it is taken by the students, it may affect their studies. So that danger is there. So we have to keep the fallout of legalizing this consumption of marijuana and then take a very considered, well-considered decision in this matter. It can't be legalized just like that.
Right. Mr. Kumar, thank you so much for speaking with us and for answering all of our questions very patiently.
Thank you.
Yes,
before concluding, I wanted to make one observation. This particular case has focused the extent of drug abuse not only amongst the film fraternity, but amongst the rich people who are also crave for something more than what they already have. They already have plenty of money. Probably they can also get any other sidekick from other pleasures, but they want something more. Then probably they look for drugs. But then I'm not so much concerned about that, but I'm concerned about the general population. Now, this case creates that there's a lot of drug abuse within the country, and steps have to be taken to curb that. And if that is not taken, then what will happen is demand in turn generates supply of drugs, and supply from the peddlers, it will lead to the large drug traffickers entering into the field, which generates huge amount of money. And that type of money can be misused for other purposes. Either they can finance political parties, they can finance inward smuggling of contraband like gold or other things. So it has a sort of a galloping effect or a multiplier effect. So demand has to be curbed, and demand has to be curbed, then each will feed to the other. Demand will lead to supply, and supply will lead to bigger supplies, and vice versa. The chaps who are promoting the consumption of drugs, they have tried to induce young people to become drug addicts. We have particularly seen people near the schools and other things quietly introducing for children some consumption of drugs. We have to be very careful about that. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. It's a pleasure.